Your current, Mr. Finley, was he
He was presently preaching here in
preaching?
Mattapoisett.
Did you meet him through church?
No, I met him because, yes, I did meet him through church, and later on our children married one another.
Okay, so have you always been a faith-filled person? Did you normally go to church?
Yes, I did, and I was in the church choir for many years. But then I worked at the Cafe Temple for 45 years, and I had to go to work at noon on Sunday, so I stopped going to church at that time.
Really? And how did that make you feel?
I still had a spiritual life.
Right. So how did you feel the spiritual life that you had missed on the Sunday mornings?
I did miss it, and I miss the people, and I miss singing in the choir. However, I had some friends, and we had a prayer meeting at home every week.
Great. What was it, Congregational Church that you belonged to?
Here, yes.
Okay.
I belonged to the Baptist church before I married John Bradley, and he lived here all his life.
Okay. And Mr. Finley was part of the Congregational Church?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's good. So how did you like working at Cafe Temple?
Oh, it was quite an experience, because I served 3 generations of the same family. We had the same people week after week, year after year, generation after generation. It was that kind of a place. Yeah. It was my home away from home.
What did you do there?
I was a hostess.
And did you have any special stories over the years? Something that was memorable?
No, I was raising 4 children, working 6 nights a week. I neglected my personal expressions. But then I retired in 1999, and then Reverend Finley, which we had known one another all these years because our children were married, but he his wife Alma died, and he was just lost without her. They were married 62 years. And he wasn't doing well, and Marcia and David, my son, lived in New Hampshire. She came down to take care of him. She left her home, or her friends, her job, to come and be with him. And my son David stayed up in New Hampshire to get the house ready to sell. And then he came down and lived in Dawn's house. And he started coming over to visit me and have lunch with me, and take me out to lunch. And before you knew it, we realized we were in love.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And so that was in 1999?
Excuse me?
That was in 1999?
No, it was in 2003.
Okay.
And we married in 2004.
Very good. How old were you when you got married?
77, and he was 87.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And we had 5 wonderful years together.
Oh, that's excellent. So, so you had a great opportunity to have a second chance at love.
Oh, yes.
So, have you always been an optimist?
Yes, I have.
Do you credit your optimism to your parents, or your upbringing in general, or your faith, or a little bit of both?
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
My father was an optimist. Mother wasn't. But he was cheerful all the time. And he gave me my love of life, my love of people, my love of music, and my love of poetry.
Oh, that's wonderful. And how did he give you the love of those things? Did he read to you poetry, or did he help you
did
write?
it by example.
Okay. Can you give me an example of something that he helped inspire you for that?
No, not the poetry so much, music more.
Okay.
He was the baritone soloist in our church choir, the North Baptist Church in New Bedford, and I was in the junior choir and the senior choir, and and we sang at home all the time.
Oh, that's nice. And singing is poetry in music.
When I
and
was
sometimes.
young,
Yeah.
I wrote a little poetry in the New Bedford Standard Times Sunday paper, had a children's page, and I used to contribute poetry, and they published every poem that I ever sent. But then, you know, in your teens you get away from it. I had to go to work the day I was 16 because my parents needed the income. And so I lost the time and the chance to continue in that way. But I had more time after I retired at 73 that devote myself to things that really interested me.
Absolutely. So when you were having your children and bringing them up and working six nights a week, you didn't have a lot of time for yourself, as you
No.
mentioned.
No.
Did you find yourself thinking about poetry or thinking about essay, like life in
really.
general? No?
Not really.
Okay.
My social life was at work,
Okay.
and I got to know some of the people well. They used to invite me to their homes. They invited me on their yachts. One even flew me to New York. One of our waiters left, and he went to the Culinary Institute in New York.
Okay.
And these people always asked for Mark to wait on them. They wanted him only. And so they invited me to go on their plane and visit Mark in New York. Wasn't that something?
That's amazing. So you did have a pretty good experiences, even though you were working all the time. You were given opportunities
Yes.
that normally wouldn't have been afforded to you had you not been working.
In fact, one family had a summer home in Cutty Hunk, and they invited me and my family for a week there. So
Wow.
Really, it was not just a job.
Right. It was an adventure.
Yes, it certainly was.
That's fantastic. So I'm curious. You went all the way to 73. When did you start to lose your eyesight?
17 years ago.
And was that something, did you always wear glasses or have trouble with your eyesight?
No,
How did that
it
come to
happened
pass?
Overnight.
Overnight.
And it happened on a Saturday. So I got an interview with the optometrist on Monday, and then on Tuesday the 2nd, I went. So within 3 days, I lost most of my eyesight.
Did they attribute it to anything specific?
Hemorrhage behind the macula.
Okay. And so there was no way of anybody knowing about that prior?
No,
It just happened?
no.
So how did you feel when that happened?
It wasn't, I could still see, and I couldn't read a book, but I could read a little bit.
Okay.
So I wasn't totally blind, and I could get around the house, and I could do the cooking and the housework, and I couldn't drive, but I could do most things. But gradually it got worse, and each time it happened overnight. It was not bad, and then it was worse.
Okay.
and then it happened again and again. Each time it got worse.
So how did it make you feel as far as your independence? So if you weren't able to drive, you were living an independent, pretty adventurous life, working at the cafe and with your children. How did you reach out and connect to?
Let me tell you how.
Okay.
Dawn, Reverend Finley, had asked me to marry him in 2004, and it happened then in July. And I said, well, I'm going to release you from our engagement because I don't want to be a burden to you. He said, we'll take care of you. Don't worry about it. I want you for my wife.
Oh.
And so he did. He was my eyes.
That's wonderful. So basically you lost your sight while you were gaining a partner. Your love basically helped.
Yes.
His love helped to buoy you through some of the literally darkest time that you had.
Yes.
Is that correct? So.
And he used to write a little poetry, and that's when I started. So I'm going to write something too. And everybody seemed to like what I wrote, and so it encouraged me to go on writing.
Oh, great. So when you started writing something, did you say, hey, Dawn, look at this? Or how did they find out that you were writing it, and how did they encourage it?
A minister friend of his and his wife came to visit, and they were reading Dawn's poems. And so I showed them mine, and they seemed to like it a lot. So I didn't write too much until Dawn passed away.
Okay.
And then I began to write more.
When did he pass?
5 years after, let me see.
Okay.
And it'll be 12 years this month.
Okay, so around 2009 he must have passed, give or take. You got married in 2004? So, yeah.
I know
Yeah.
it's 12 years ago.
Yeah,
but
so 12 years ago is when you really started to write more.
yes.
Okay, and what inspired you to write? Like, what gives you inspiration?
I can't take credit for it. It would come to me often in the night, and I didn't want to get up, but it made me get up and write it down.
In the middle of the night?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I didn't consciously think it up.
Okay.
It came to me.
All right. So you were divinely inspired.
Yes.
Okay. And
You
so
put it that way.
when you woke up during the day and you had looked at what you wrote, did you find that you wanted to expound on what you were inspired for during the night, or was when you got that inspiration at night, was that the whole poem or the whole writing?
No, not always at night. In the daytime, I didn't sit down and say I'm going to write a poem today.
Okay.
I sat down when the Spirit moved me.
Okay.
And wrote it, and I wrote it and wrote it and wrote it.
Yeah.
And then I would read it over and edit it and maybe switch some verses around. But it was divinely inspired.
Absolutely. Now, did you find that certain days, like if you were having a good day or a bad day, that's when you had those inspirations, or was it just
Random.
very random? Okay, it's interesting. So I was reading some of your poems, and I was kind of interested in a couple of them. It's kind of interesting that you wrote things just randomly and everything. When you started, first I want to ask, when you started writing after 12 years, because your friends had read it and you were inspired to keep writing, after Dawn passed and you kept writing more, did you share your writings with others soon after?
Just the family.
Just the family? And how did you share it? When you got together, or did you call them and say, hey, I have something I want to tell you?
No, they had to read it back to me because once I write it, I can never see it again.
Okay, okay. So you wrote it and then somebody read it afterwards so that you could
Yes.
make sure. Oh, that's true too. You had already lost your sight. So every time you were writing and you were inspired, this was all after you had lost your sight.
Yes,
Okay.
but that was gradual. In the beginning, if I really concentrated very hard, I could see some of what I wrote, and my mind filled in the rest.
Right. It's funny, I was reading in some of your writings, they're thoughtful and inspirational, and it almost seems like some of them are a guide for a living. Do you find that?
It's what?
A guide for living.
Oh.
It's sort of inspirational for people so you put thoughts to ponder.
Oh.
And that one there, it speaks to how people should treat one another. Did you have, what inspired that one? Do you remember?
I was in a philosophical mood, obviously. How did that come about? I guess I wanted to express myself and share it.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know people to know how I thought and what my attitude was and what I could share.
Absolutely. I think a lot of your writings are definitely that, you speaking to someone about how you were thinking, and it comes across as that. You had Enlightenment, for instance. That one seems to have an awful lot of imagery in it, and I was just curious, that's a poem that you had. I was wondering if the poem was written so I was going to ask if it was written before or after you had lost your sight, but that particular one, it seems that, do you remember things that you have seen, of course, and did that come to play? I don't know if you have, do you remember all your writings?
I know what they are, but I don't know them word for word.
Okay, so I'm going to read Enlightenment for you. Okay?
That was off the wall.
That one, what do you mean it was off the wall?
Yeah. And it came to me. I had to get it down. I was so inspired. I was so feeling beyond, above and beyond.
Okay. I'm going to read that one just for the sake of having that. Sparkling, sparkling showers of light swirl around me, lifting my soul. Shimmering pinpoints of light dance all around me. Music fills the air, and I am transported through the magical air. Spiraling upward, ever upward, past suns and moons and stars, glorious and ephemeral. Onward and upward I fly, filled with ecstasy and exhilaration, whirling through space in timeless beauty, profound and still. I am transformed into spirit, dancing and laughing with joy, filled and fulfilled. I found the universe is filled with love, made of love, by love, with love. All is forgiven, all is made clear and pure and new. Songs and poems tumble from my lips. Paeans of gratitude and worship and knowing, and that is the mystery.
It was an experience.
It must have been.
So uplifting and magical, mystical and magical.
And you just felt that. It was a feeling inside of you.
Absolutely. Above and beyond anything I'd ever felt before or have since.
Was that one that was inspired at night, or was that an inspiration during the day?
Let me think about that. I don't recall it being at night, so it must have been I must have been in a philosophical mood and felt I had to sit, and then it became just so intense and so wonderful. Like I never felt it before and have not felt it since.
Wow. Do you look back or think back? I know you can't necessarily read your writings, but have you thought back on any particular writing that you've done, either poem or essay, that you recall it, and like this one, you're remembering the feeling of it. Do you, at times, do any of these pop into your mind?
Mm-hmm.
And are there any of them that come in continually, more often than not?
It's more music that comes to me, often hymns that have great meaning for me. Music's always in my mind.
Right, and that's a very good thing to have in your mind. Do you get something stuck in your mind sometime? Any particular song or hymn get stuck in your mind?
Yes. Mostly about Jesus. I'm trying to think of the one that comes to me the most often. Trust in the Lord.
Okay. Do you find yourself singing it sometimes?
Yes, I do, all the time.
You want to sing it to us?
No.
Figured I'd try.
I'll do you a favor, I won't sing.
Well, you've been in the choir all that time.
Well, what happened? I had a stroke in 2002 and I lost my singing voice. I used to have a good voice, if I do say so myself. I was a soloist in church. I belonged to the Cape Cod Light Opera Company. I sang with them.
Okay.
But then I lost my voice when I had a stroke.
Okay.
I can still talk, but I don't have that singing voice anymore.
Right. Could the blindness, the hemorrhage that happened, could that have been after and maybe attributed to the stroke?
After what?
After your stroke, that's when you had that hemorrhage in your eyes. I wonder if that was the connection.
Let me put it in my mind. Now, I don't know if I can put those two together or not.
It would be the doctors who would have done that if they had an idea on that. So that would have been interesting, the timing.
Because my eyesight was all right after that until 2004.
Right. Yeah.
2 years later.
Yeah, never know. So speaking of eyesight, you have one of your
Vision's
Vision.
one of my favorites. And
Yeah.
also now that I'm 94, those two.
Absolutely. It's interesting that I actually pinpointed those particular writings then. It was just a fluke that I happened to pick two of your favorites. So that means that they actually had some sort of connection even to me. So that one, it really is a testament to your optimism and your depth of love beyond sight.
Those two express who I am.
Okay. So when did you start writing that one, the vision one? And how did you feel when you were writing it?
I guess I must have been feeling a little sorry for myself at that point, but I don't let myself stay feeling sorry for myself.
Right. So do you remember if you wrote that soon after you were losing your vision, or
No.
longer after?
Are you going to read it?
I was going to, but I've got to find it first. But I was going to ask you, do you remember where you were on that?
Should be the first one under poems.
The first one under poems. Of course, my looking for, if you told me what to look.
I don't know in that book.
Yeah, I
My
don't know
book at
how-
home, I have them in a different order.
I see. Well, I'll find it in a second. Here it is. I can see it. Of course, I should put my glasses
It
on. So I
might
can
be
see.
at the end. of the poem.
No, I've got it. So, to see the sun sparkling on the water, to watch the osprey circle high above the bay, it is to feel the blessed miracle of sight and to glory in the beauty of God's world. The doctor's voice was gentle and sympathetic as he pronounced me legally blind. But I live not in a cold, gray world, for I can see with my heart. To hear my little bird say, "You're so beautiful," and "I love you," is to see once more. Her lovely green feathers and rosy breast, for I still see her with my heart. To feel our cats, Cricket and Marty, brush against my leg, looking for affection. I can feel their soft fur. No, I still see them in my heart. Through the faces of my dear ones are blurred and formless. My memory holds generations of my children, through infancy, childhood to adulthood, each as dear and perfectly clear, for I hold them in my heart. And my grandchildren, their faces bright, eager, in their embrace and kisses. I feel their warm energy and their love, and I can see them with my heart. I remember the beauty of the trees, the flowers, the sunsets, and the blue sea and sunlight. For God granted me a deeper vision when he took away my sight. That's very, very beautiful. And I'm sure your children and grandchildren and future generations.
I had this book made up for all my children and grandchildren. They each have a copy
Of this particular
of the whole book.
So I'm curious, when I was reading through some of these, I'm sure these are probably not all of your writings, correct?
Pardon me?
The compilation that's here, these are not all your writings, are they?
I don't have any of the others. They disappeared over the years.
How did they disappear?
Well, I moved several times, and now when I went to live in Dawn's house, I had to get rid of 95% of my possessions because there's Dawn's things and his late wife's, and Marcia's, and her mother's, and her grandmother's, and just the house was already full before I moved in, so I knew I couldn't bring my stuff.
Okay, so these poems and essays that you have,
All that have left.
this is all that's left? What made you keep these particular ones?
Because these are the ones that I wrote after I got there, after I moved there.
Oh, I see. So the other ones are all gone.
Yeah.
Do you remember any of the other ones, your earlier ones?
No, because it was just a random now and then thing. It wasn't something I was into.
Okay. Did you find that all of your past ones and your current ones were inspirational and had to do with nature or how you were feeling, or did some of them have...
Mostly how I was feeling at the time, or what I was experiencing at the time.
Did you find it therapeutic?
Of course I did.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you?
I think so, absolutely. I didn't know if it was feeling therapeutic or if it was just like that inspiration came to you and you felt compelled. So it was a combination of both, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you have any other thoughts or inspirations for people? Anything else that you like? If somebody were to watch or hear from you, and you've gone through some challenges with, like you said, you've gone through a lifetime of family and working and everything, and you worked on behalf of your family from when you were 16, your parents you had to work for, and then you started working on behalf of your children and your husband and husbands. So when you look back at all the challenges that you've had, there's one of them now, and your grandchildren, would you look at something and say, through all of this, what helped keep you going? What helped that optimism going for you?
I have to think about that. I know I always tried to cheer people up. when they would talk to me, I try to get them to look on the bright side and find a kernel of happiness or inspiration, because nothing happens by chance. What happens to us is a learning experience, and we have to look at it in an optimistic manner. And I tried to get other people to change their attitude towards something more positive.
Did people come to you specifically to get that kind of inspiration?
I can remember one gentleman brought in a woman friend of his, and she was going through a very painful divorce, and I could see that she was so unhappy and so grieving. So I said to him, "Why did you bring her to me? She's still bleeding." And he said, "That's why. I knew you could help her."
Oh, wow.
So I talked to her and I said, "First of all, it's not your fault. It's something he has to live with the rest of his life, that he's hurt you so much. And one way not to dwell on your grief and pain is to get out and volunteer, do something for someone else, get your mind off it. Of course, it's going to hurt for a long time, but you can help yourself by helping others."
Absolutely.
And she liked that. She cheered up, she stopped crying, and I felt good because I think I had reached her and given her a new way to look at it.
Absolutely. That's a gift you have.
And many people came to me with their problems. I don't know, I guess I attract people that need help. Everybody needs help in some way. We all do.
Absolutely. Did some of the things that you helped other people with, could those possibly have been inspiration for your writings? Maybe you didn't even realize it. Maybe
No, I didn't think about that at all. No.
It could have been. Who knows? It could have been something that you realized you helped somebody else out with, and you got.
It was a way of life.
Absolutely. Yeah. And how old are you going to be this year?
In March, I'll be 95. Oh, that reminds me. Looking back, could you read that one? Looking back.
Looking back.
Now that I am 94.
I like the one with Lucy Little, because we had a land, but I was not born yet, or my two brothers.
Looking back. Is that a poem, the Looking Back one?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, it might not even be in that one. I have it at home, but this is a book that Liz had borrowed from me. So I might not have even put it in there.
Don't
But
see
anyway,
that one.
looking back on my long, long life, now that I am 94, I'll get it to you sometime if it's not in there.
What's the essence of it that you want to?
I've known the good and the bad. I've known joy and pain. I've known love and loss. And it ends up that, I'm thanking God for all the experiences and learned from them
That's excellent.
and shared it.
Well, I think I'd love if you wouldn't mind putting that particular one onto our town website for the Council on Aging, so that other people can tap into it if you'd like, so that you can share that wisdom and that appreciation for life, despite everything that one goes through, because we all go through all of that just in our own ways, correct? everybody has a loss. Hopefully people have a love.
I've lost 3 husbands, for instance.
Wow, that's a lot. But now you have generations to come.
And I live with these 3 little ones, and I have my grandchildren, and I have 4 children, 8 grandchildren, and all their spouses, and 9 great-grandchildren.
Wow.
So I have been blessed.
Absolutely. And you
what,
can take
Mom?
these kinds of memories and they can pass along and realize the optimism that you've had in your life, and hopefully they can continue that optimism into theirs and to the other ones, the people in their
Wouldn't that
lives.
be wonderful?
It absolutely would be. And I think that you created a seed.
I've been inspired by people all my life. I guess we all have had experiences that have inspired us from other people, and pass it on.
Absolutely. So you become
Pay it forward.
Absolutely, yes. So you were inspired by others, and now you become an inspiration to others. Does that make sense?
I've been told that. Yes.
I think that's a wonderful thing, actually. Is there anything you'd like to, anything else you'd like to share at this point, or anything I haven't asked you or we haven't discussed?
We pretty well covered everything, didn't we?
I think so.
I hope that I can live on in the lives of my family after I'm gone, which won't be around too much longer, and that's okay. I've done it all. If I can live on in their memory and in their love, and I'll be satisfied. I'll go with peace in my heart.
That's, I think, a wonderful, wonderful sentiment, and I think that's a perfect way to end the formality of our talk today. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing your poems, and we look forward to hopefully sharing these with other people to inspire others. So thank you so much, Hope. It's so appropriate that your name is Hope.
My sister's name was Grace.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Does she have Grace also?
In a different way. She wasn't like me.
No.
But she was a wonderful person in her own right.
Great.
But quite different.
Okay. Well, you have given hope all your life to others, and I think you're going to continue giving hope through your writings and through your family. So.
You know what? You made me feel like going home and writing something.
There you go. Well, thank you so much, Hope. We really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure.
Excellent.